The blacker the better, the more we can heal. We stay in tune with our ancestors so we can feel. You're in the presence of King. I ain't making you kneel. With the project to the runway, let's Heidi Musil. You get it? We do more than put up triple doubles, run a huddle, engineers, and we ain't making trouble. Well, only our time is consumed before might moonwalk, men on the moon. Go ahead and cap that. Make something on the that's black. Got my pillow snap back to position the board like cat. I broke my mama pride cause I'm spreading peace. You didn't hear a struggle to mumble beats instead of hearing us teach. Then the things we preach, changing the world we preach, fighting new wars on the beach. Mine's a weapon, that's the only way I shoot you. So you got to be scared of black future. Blacker than chitlins, blacker than hip hop, blacker than blacker than Tupac. Cherry, cause we got stats the whole world and holding us back. I'm celebrating, I'm blacker than Michelle, blacker than Maya, blacker than Nina, blacker than Shirley, blacker than Oprah. Check our history, cause we got stats the whole world. All right, peace, everybody. Is the guy with the bow tie checking in with you live for a new edition, special edition, momentous edition of Professionally Black. I have a melanated panel of kings and one queen to help make sure to keep us honest with everything. But thank you for joining us here. If you're hashtag team live, let us know below. Hashtag team replay, let us know below. Please show some love on where you're watching from. As you know who I am, I want to introduce my panel first before we get too deep into the content. To my right, you have the amazing Reggie Waterman. How you doing, Reggie?
What's up, Daryl?
Let us know your gift, King.
Connecting and helping people like yourselves and everybody out there identify what their superpower is and helping them become unapologetically themselves. So that's my superpower.
Ooh, I like that one. That was a powerful one. Tony, you got to follow that one. We got the amazing Tony Taylor next to him. Tony, what's your gift for the world?
Ooh, I love that. Thank you, man. The amazing Tony Taylor, man. My superpower is letting people or putting people in the position to realize their true greatness. I work as a motivational speaker, specializing in leadership and overcoming adversity. And I'm also the host of Leaders Lead the podcast.
Perfect. And Tony always has the best merch. You have to check out Tony's merch all the time. Looking good.
I appreciate you, brother.
No problem. Hello, Tony. We have Pierre Campbell, Mr. Let's Go, representing for Jamaica. What's going on?
Well, you know me have to say, let's go. I'm big up. Tony, by the way, I love that. I love your logo, man. I keep thinking about that Tesla that I'm about to purchase. So that's all I keep thinking about, Tony. I'm thinking about that Tesla, and you're giving me signs. So
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Tony. I help people articulate their values so they can have high earning potential. And I write books too. I love writing books. My next book is going to come out in January because everybody's been waiting for that leadership book. So I just can't wait to bring that to the people of the world. And I can just hand it over to the next person, the next king.
Appreciate you, Pierre. All right, up next, the lady, the queen of the bunch. We have Future Cain, the evangelic heaven background. Future, let us know your gift besides lovely background.
Hello, I hope everybody's staying healthy and being mindful. My gifts and talents are working with organizations and educational institutions to ensure that we all can breathe and we have wellness and social emotional leadership in every space with every face that we encounter.
Ooh, she's the most succinct. I wasn't even ready for that, Future. Super fast with it. Thank you for the powerful message, though. All right, up next, King Teryl. How you doing, King? Let us know your gift. And I love that. Everybody, please notice his Africa background for his bookshelf. That's like the coolest bookcase I've seen. Thank you for showing that off.
Yeah, it's one of my proudest possessions. How you doing, everybody? I'm Teryl White. I'm the founder of 3BC, which is a consulting firm focusing on Black-owned businesses in the areas of customer service, marketing, access to capital, and sales and operations. We also operate a global business directory and marketplace where you can find and shop all Black everything. And then also one of the co-founders of the Center for Black Progress, which is a nonprofit geared at eliminating all obstacles to Black life for Afro-descendant communities worldwide. So in other words, I eat, sleep, breathe, and do everything for Black folk, man. I'm trying to put us on bigger and better all the time.
Dude, yeah, I love that. We all need that in our lives nowadays, especially. And to round things off, we have ex-NFL athlete and team captain Reggie Walker. Reggie, let us know your gift, King. Oh, you're still on mute. Hold on, you're on mute.
Hey, how's everybody? And yeah, I say my gift is I love to help people get what they want out of life as themselves and not put it on a mask in order to get it. My company, Life Grow, with my partner David Carter, we help to improve the environment and the lifestyle of athletes, and also it supports our entrepreneurial endeavors. I got a book out now, Game Within the Game, check it out, and a Ford Business School course in partnership with Knowledge and Innovation Center. So check us out.
All right, well, thanks for joining us. So today's topic, King's Disease, which is perfect because Nas is one of my favorite MCs, and that album title kind of spoke to me two different ways. But the purpose of that album was saying overdoing it in certain things is bad for you, which is what gout came from. That's what King's Disease comes from. But he was speaking to the fact of overdoing bad things, kind of detriment to our people. So I was looking at the fact of our kings have a disease of not focusing on mental health. Candidly, I didn't really talk about that with my father, like ever. That was never a conversation about, take care of your mind, feed your brain. Like none of that was a thing. It was just do good in school and don't get anybody pregnant. That's kind of like the general consensus of what the statement was. But as I got older, I realized I didn't cry in front of my father until I was in my 30s. And that kind of hit me like, man, I thought, and much to what Michael Phelps said, it's okay to not be okay. I had to kind of grow into that. So Reggie, I want to start with you and Pierre after that, because both of you come from a very aggressive background with football. Football, very much power. Be strong. Don't show weakness. It's all about that. So Reggie, I wanted to start with you because Ellen is specified. I'll say Walker for you and then Waterman for the other Reggie. But Mr. Walker, as someone that's come from the NFL background, I mean, mental health is like non-existent in the NFL. So talk about, in a few minutes, what that was like for you to kind of realize how important that was for you as an athlete and as a human.
It was a process. It took a long time for me to kind of let go of that idea of who I was and actually started sitting into what I actually was and understanding that, I'm the same guy who would, put the hands on someone if they came up on my family, but I'm also the same guy who, if I watch Moana, I'm going to cry every single time. I'm all of these things. And being comfortable with that took a process. And it took a lot of therapy, but it really took a lot of sitting with myself and being okay with what came out. And that's a process that a lot of people in general really need to go through, but it's a very difficult process in itself because a lot of the truths that you become awakened to, they can hurt. They can hurt a lot. And but I'm really glad that I'm here and I'm doing it now these days.
Okay, appreciate that. And you've done a lot of work with that too. And Pierre, as a leadership coach, you're also ex-football rock star, and you kind of had to go through there yourself. So kind of talk about you as a young man that also has children, why that was important for you to kind of start focusing on mental health as an adult.
Yeah, because and I'm glad, you know what, Reggie, one of the things that you just said just a while ago is the whole therapy thing. I just wanted to make sure I pulled that because I heard that and I was like, oh my God. I was so afraid of like therapy. I've never done it. I'm not saying that I have, but I was so afraid of it. And I think the fact that I have trauma, post-traumatic disorder, or whatever it's called, of that is because of the way we've been brought up. We've been brought up to be tough. You know, I was a linebacker, you know, you need to hit and, you know, stay focused in the game and always be focused on, you know, being tough and hard and stuff. And then, but I think the mental health hit me when I was in college. For those of you who don't know, I graduated from Cheney University of Pennsylvania. Cheney is the first HBCU. You know, I always like to give a shout out to my beloved CU. Can't spell HBCU without CU, by the way, just so y'all know. But at Cheney, I played 5 years of college football, and I only won one college football game. You know, and I know y'all laughing. I know I can't see y'all, but y'all laughing.
We're not laughing.
Like one college football game. Can you imagine, Reggie? I know you went to the NFL. I played arena, man. I didn't play NFL. Listen, one college football game. I'm just saying, you know, but what that does to your psyche, oh my God. You talk about mentally jacked up. Thank God I had this reoccurring thought of optimism. Like every single game, we're going to win, we're going to win, we're going to win. But I saw it around me where my teammates were breaking down mentally, where we would go out in the game and literally during the game, I have teammates saying, man, we ain't going to win this game. I mean, and I would get pissed off and angry. And so talking about mental health is so important because I realized just because we lost, that doesn't mean that that's me. And that's why I talk about it. I mean, I'm a leadership coach who talks about leadership and optimism and talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion right now. And people would be like, what? You lost all those games? Yes. But then I played arena and we won. You know, and every team that I went to, we won. So those things they weren't a label on me. So I wanted to make sure I point that out. And thank you for saying that, Reggie, because that was one of the things that going to therapy, I think is big for us as Black men.
Most definitely.
Yeah, Tony, I want you to piggyback on that because you mentioned optimism, and your journey is very unique, and you're Mr. Positivity to the max is what I see with your content online. So for you as a Black male, was that intentional, like you focusing on positivity for mental health?
Yeah, man, I had to. Me growing up as a kid, I grew up in Gary, Indiana, and during the time of me growing up, we're talking about the early 90s, we were considered to be the murder capital of the United States. I mean, we had more murders at that time. We had superseded Compton. And in my neighborhood, like they were proud of that. And for me, in order to be considered a man, I needed to embody that toughness, that aggression. So, you know, naturally I did things like play football. I boxed. I then turned into a professional boxer. But for me, I would, instead of hurting somebody, I would rather hug them. I never grew up to where the men in our household, I didn't have a man in my household, but seeing other men in other households, I never grew up seeing them say to their kids, man, I love you. I love you so much. And that's why I try to do that for my kids. And another thing that I never seen or never even fathomed was Black men in our family going to see a therapist. And I say this, I was just telling a cousin of mine last night, go see a therapist. And then immediately in my brain, I'm thinking, wait, does he believe that I think that something is wrong with you? Because that's what happens in the Black community. You say, man, I think you need to go see somebody. And it's almost like it's a bad thing, right? It's a bad thing. So As far as me being positive, man, life sucks. And I'm gonna tell you, it sucked the last 14 months for my freaking family. But if you were a fly on the wall, you were here, me saying, my wife saying, my kids saying, you know what, we're going to get through this. And by the way, what time is our therapy appointment? So
Yeah, Future, this is perfect for you to chime in on, because I wanted to have a female perspective for this too, because often our women help us to see the issues often 9 to 10 times, because we're like, nah, I'm fine. And the women kind of help us to see that. So we appreciate our queens for helping with that. But talk about, for your perspective, you have children and you definitely beat this into them that mental health is so important. So why have you taken that stance? Not in a bad way, but why is that stance so important to you as a mother?
One, because I have a black boy, right? I'm raising a black boy, and I know if you're married, your spouses, your mothers, your grandmothers, the people who love you, are worried every day for you, for what you have to go through. And I've seen time and time again in our education system that narrative that the men or young men play in their minds, because they're not seeing it. And they're not hearing people say it's okay to take preventative and proactive actions and build my skills up so that I can continue to be resilient, and I can continue to show my strength, and I can continue on this journey that may be very difficult. So because the suicide rates are very high for our boys 15 to 24, and because stress breeds the possibilities of them saying, I can't do this anymore. And because there's not people there to stand and say, you can do this. We love you, we see you, we value you, and we want you here, and we see those gifts and talents, but maybe you've never been told that before, but I'm here to shed my light on you because I want you here. And I think that's the message that the children that are men need to hear, because you are more than that stat and that hashtag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Teryl, you mentioned working with everything black. I mean, obviously mental health is bad in the U.S. overall, but I mean, with you focusing on the black diaspora, much to what Tony and Pierre said, like it was bad to say, it was always like, you got to see the doc. The shrink was always the thing. You got to go to see a head doctor, something's wrong with you. So you've also taken the stance to kind of work with us more for our people. So what's been the most rewarding thing you've seen by taking the focus on mental health for our people?
That's a great question. And I wanted to, before I get into that, I want to show this to everyone. This is a book you need to have, right? I think it was Pierre talking about PTSD. We have PTSD, the regular post-traumatic stress syndrome disorder. We also have post-traumatic slave syndrome, all right? So if you guys haven't read that book, it's a must. So when we talk about black mental health, there's one very important thing that we got to acknowledge that prevents us from getting the help that we need. There's this stigma in the black community, this underlying undeniable stigma. And the reason, and what that stigma does is it prevents people from getting the help they need. It stigmatizes the very act of it. Oh man, he's crazy. Oh yeah, you know, he ain't right in the head. So even when people know that something's not right, when they know that something's amiss, there's this cultural and social barrier that prevents them from getting the help that they need. And that stigma is there because as black people, we've come to believe that suffering is our heritage. Let that sizzle in your spirit for a minute, like Wayne says, right? We've come to believe that suffering is our heritage through the expectations of the larger society. There's an expectation of adaptation for black people, right? Oh, y'all can weather anything. It's why black women have much higher mortality rates in hospitals and in healthcare scenarios. Everybody, there's this expectation that black people can weather every storm, and it's a blessing and a curse. But when you're in a larger society, it's these burdens that you can take whatever's being dished out. You don't require the same amount of care and concern and softness, right? And there's so many things, man. And what we've found through the Center for Black Progress, health is what we call one of the 12 obstacles to Black progress. And it's one of the most important because even after we talk about healing economics, we talk about unity, identity, the media. These are the other obstacles that we've identified with our paradigm, which we work to program and put solutions in place. Even if all of those things come into place, And like, I don't know if y'all remember the Chappelle Show skit from back in the day where it's like, hey, we got reparations. And then within the week, all of it was given back to the larger society because people went out and bought Cadillacs. They bought all of these materialistic things in industries that we don't own. And it's like, boom, we're right back where we started. So that goes into the mental, the ideology, your paradigm. So I say all that to say, even if we solve everything else, the psychological trauma, the generations of hurt and damage that have been done to us, that we are forced to live up under, living in a race. I'm not gonna say racist society, because somebody
go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it.
Is this a safe space? Is this a safe space?
This is a safe space. That's why I made this platform. Listen, to give you full disclosure, Pierre and I came up with this talking to Pierre. I asked him about what was the leadership like at the White House when Trump was still in office. And then Pierre reached into the brain, how do I say this PC on LinkedIn and not sound like the angry black man? Because obviously Trump is an idiot, whether he's purple, orange, black, brown, yellow, doesn't matter. He was an idiot. But when Pierre asked, he had to answer that question. I said, I want a safe place for us to say these things on LinkedIn. So Professionally Black is all about that. So it is a racist society. Go ahead.
Say it, brother. Say it.
Say that. So we live in a racist society, and these things take a legitimate, almost physical weight. It's a psychological burden, but it's a physical weight upon us. And we're socioeconomically disadvantaged in almost every category across the board. And it's all of these things. It's amazing that, and I'm a military guy as well, and I'm very familiar with PTSD. You can go over fighting a war for anywhere between 12 months to 3 years, experience some horrifying things, and come back here and you be shaken up for the rest of your life. And this society takes that very seriously. What no one does take seriously is what happens to Black people seeing themselves shot and manhandled, seeing their mothers and grandmothers and daughters and brothers and cousins and uncles just dehumanized daily on TV, right? What happens when you're constantly shut out of so many industries, whether you have the merit or not? What happens when that epigenetic trauma that is literally inherited through your DNA from slavery, from people witnessing the most horrific acts committed against human flesh? All of these things have a weight that no one talks about. And again, it's because we think, and this large society thinks, that suffering is our heritage.
Terrell in here, I knew he was going to bring the heat. But you brought up a great point. I mean, we went through hundreds of years of trauma, and they said, all right, y'all go be in society. Go ahead, just figure it out. And there was nothing. There was no counseling. I mean, Reggie Waterman, you're doing a good job helping people recognize their greatness. I mean, what do you think made you feel like this is something our people need, especially as a Black male? What made you feel like I got to help people find their greatness, considering what's going on?
Yeah, and I just want to say this off the top. Like, even though I'm part of this panel, I'm super grateful to be part of this discussion in terms of, I'm like an audience member. The nuggets of value that everybody has been offering is amazing. So, kudos to everybody that participated in this. Teryl, thank you for facilitating. Now, why did I dive into this stream in terms of helping people uncover their greatness? Is because to kind of wrap it all up in a bow in terms of what everybody is saying, I think it's upon us, this generation, to talk about legacy. We always talk about legacy, but we need to do a better job in terms of something I call emotional inheritance. Now, it's upon us and our responsibility to pay it forward. And I know Future Tony talked about it too, as well as, how do we impact our children? How do we impact the future leaders of tomorrow? I remember, being first generation Canadian, my parents are from the Caribbean. So I think about their come up, their upbringing. It wasn't their fault, right? The emotional inheritance that they received from their parents was, you had to be tough. There's no crying, right? The I love yous barely came, as Tony mentioned. And what do we do? What do I do as a father for my kids? I make sure that every time I see my kids, I'm saying I love you. I'm giving them a hug, just showing that emotion, right? And that's how we pay it forward so that they could now take that emotional inheritance and pass that forward to their own legacy. But when it comes to establishing other people's greatness, it's about, okay, we've all gone through Trump. We talk about, Pierre talked about, therapy. Like, what is therapy? Luckily, fortunately for me, I've been through it. And again, that's a stigma within the Black community. You shouldn't go to therapy because if you do, you're weak. However, there's no weakness in understanding where your pitfalls are, where your trauma is, and doing the work Now we have to actually do the work. We say we're going to do the work, but what does the work actually mean? It means going through therapy, going through the necessary steps in order to leave the past in the past, right? And establish a new narrative in terms of identifying what we want in life. So in terms of establishing your greatness, it's about, okay, well, looking at your superpower. And Daryl, you asked that question off the top, right? Once we identify what our superpower is, we can leverage that, and we're put on this earth to figure out what our purpose is. That's how we create impact. We build communities, just like this virtual community that you established right now on your platform, Daryl. You're gathering people. That's the impact that you're having. So within that sense, this is how we create the greatness that we are supposed to be and showing up in this world. That's what we're supposed to do. If we're going to sit back and just watch Netflix all day, we're not creating it. We're not, paying it forward. We're not establishing that emotional inheritance that we really need to, pass on to our next generation so that we can evolve as a community. We got to let the past go. That's it.
I want to throw a slight curveball into this for Mr. Walker. So as you think about in the Black society, there's a little bit of colorism with mental health. You used to always hear back in the day, oh, you being light-skinned if you were emotional and you were crying. All y'all know, everyone laughing like that. That was the thing you would say. It was always like Wesley Snipes was stone cold, no feeling. Then if you saw something like I can't even think of a group now, but you see an old group, the Bars, like the Bars was big. I'm aging myself here a little bit, but you would see a light skin, you being light skinned, you being emotional, showing your heart and all that. And that's something we always have to this day is still an issue. I mean, I've heard Drake rap about this recently, you being light skinned. So Reggie, as someone that's dealing with, you talk to athletes still in your current capacity, that's probably got to be hard to have the title of NFL athlete, but then talk about mental health. I mean, how do you deal with that right now in your current state of, I know I'm messed up. I know I was messed up, but I'm trying to change it with the same people that are still in this industry. How is that kind of impacting you as far as the work you're trying to do with these people?
If I'm being completely honest, it doesn't affect me at all because I'm completely comfortable with myself. And I understand that a lot of people that have something to say are not comfortable with themselves. And I know that I've gotten to the point of being uncomfortable. And I understand that this is the only spot that's going to help me to grow. So I stay there. So is that a lot of that outside noise is what I call it. That doesn't affect me whatsoever. So it's better to stand on your 2 feet and know that you're doing what's right in the midst of a lot of people that are doing what's wrong. But at the same time, I've gotten a lot of feedback, and a lot of people are really hurting out here. And if anything, I get more positive feedback than any negative, because there's a lot of people that are hurting that are wishing that the space was open. And I know that with me talking, I help to create those spaces. So I'm going to keep talking as much as possible.
Awesome. And I know, Tony, you talk as much as possible about positivity all the time. I mean, I think it hits me more when I became a father. That's what I think a lot of us, when you become a parent, mother or father, this becomes more apparent. And then you were boxing, for God's sake. Boxing is also a very tough sport. When you look at boxing and football, there's a lot of suicides that happen, or they their wives or kill somebody. That happens quite a bit. So did you realize that when you were boxing, this is something I need to work on? Or was it when you became a father, it really hit you like, I got to take advantage of this?
Yeah, I think it was throughout, man. Throughout my life, I started seeing, even as a young kid, started seeing, man, this is not who I am. I don't have to be this gladiator. I don't have to cause suffering in order to end my suffering. But it amplified when I had kids. It amplified when I saw them going through the things that they were going through. And I started, in full transparency, man, I would see my girls going through stuff at school, and I would say, oh, man, that's just, you're in fourth grade. You're in fifth grade. You'll figure it out. Life will, you'll start noticing, that these things that you care about right now aren't that big of a deal. But what I was doing was I was saying that their issues, their struggles weren't a big deal. So I was repeating that same behavior. And it's just like any job that I've ever done, especially, being in the military, you come back off of these crazy missions And like, what do you do? Like, how do you heal? Suck it up. Suck it up. You're a Marine. You're supposed to be tough. But on the inside, you're crying about stuff. On the inside, when I was a kid, I'm crying about the gunshots that were going on outside, and we all pretended like it was normal instead of saying, you know what, this is wrong. We need to be healed. And that's why with my girls, man, we practice it. You know, I go to the depths. There's no end. There's no end of what we can go as far as getting my kids what they need. So definitely, I think it's a conversation that we need to keep having. We need to keep reinventing it, getting it right, because sometimes we do screw it up. But yeah, man, this is a good conversation. Thank you for having me. And just like Reggie said, I'm sitting here learning. I'm looking for my pen so I can take some notes. You guys are dropping some gems, man. So thank you for blessing everybody with your presence, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Candidly, I couldn't do this when I was supposed to do this in June. This is supposed to be for Father's Day, but that was close to the eve of my mother's 1 year anniversary for dying last year. So I wasn't right. I said, hey, I'm not good. I can't do this right now because I wasn't prepared for that. So I had to take a break. So I just told myself, like, hey, I'm not good. This is not the time for this. I'm going to break down and not be able to do this. Not that that's a bad thing, but just for the content, it wasn't right for the content. So I said, you know what? Let me wait till I'm somewhat okay. I think I'm never going to be fully okay, but it's one of those things that you got to address with yourself of like, hey, I need a minute.
I love that, brother. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
With that, I know how hard that is as far as dealing with death, right? Growing up where we grew up, I remember we have a relative that'll pass away. Everybody come over, bring chicken, and you know how we do in our families, bring chicken. You see everybody, you can't get rid of those people for about a month or two, but then all of a sudden you're alone with the people inside of your house, dealing and kind of suffering through that. How much of that do you think is healthy? Like you sharing that, like with your kids, do you say, hey, you guys, I'm really not feeling it? And do you think that that's important to do it or not do it?
I think it's healthy to do it because I mean, when my grandmother passed, I wasn't really close. She was in New Jersey. We was in the military, so we were always moving. So it wasn't like I had a strong relationship. So going to the funeral when I was probably 23 didn't faze me as much because I hadn't seen her a whole lot. I never really had strong ties with my family because the military moved us all the time. So all it was a phone call or a letter. It was never like, hey, we went to that party together. We had it's Christmas. It was never anything like that. So my direct family, like my wife asked me all the time, like, hey, are you okay? You know, I know this is a hard week, but she planned the whole event for me that was hard for me to do. But she knew, like, hey, I know this is going to be hard for you, but I think you need to do it. So I give her all the credit for talking about it because I'll go sit in the corner and work and think I'm fine until I hear a certain thing. Like I might hear about medicine and that triggers me, or cardiac arrest will trigger me. Certain things will do that. So this helps me here doing this with you guys. And you got me, Tony. You got me.
I'm sorry, man. I asked you that, man. I know you're the moderator. I asked you that because that's something that I started doing. It wasn't nothing that I read, but I started sharing with the people in my household because it's so freaking easy, man. I said it for years. I remember coming back off of a deployment and, just knowing that things weren't right, like inside of me, but people would say, are you okay? And I would just say, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And it's almost like I was trying to convince myself. But what I noticed with this thing that we're working on right now, because we've had so many deaths in our family, we've lost people that's still on this earth. It's just like dealing with mental health, man. I've made a practice. And that's why I was just asking you guys, I made a practice of sharing my kids. You know what? I'm feeling it today. I'm feeling it just like I would as a code. And that's why I asked you, because it's just like, I think it's beautiful when we share that as a family. And I was just wondering, what was y'all thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Tony, that was a beautiful question, and my condolences to you and your family, Daryl. But that's all part of this discussion right now that we're having, which is about mental health. So for you to actually come out and say, you weren't feeling that great at that point in time, that's all part of it. If we cannot express ourselves, then we're only doing ourselves a disservice. everyone asks the question, "Are you okay?" because it's the easiest thing and it's the natural question to ask. But really and truly, they really want to know, "Are you happy?" And nobody wants to ask that question because they're going to be obviously sensitive to that, response. But really and truly, if you really want to get to know somebody, ask them that question, and you'll be surprised at what they come back with. Because then they'll think about it for a second. Am I really happy? And they'll come back and
Yeah.
say, "You know what? I'm dealing with X, Y, Z." But then as a human, I want to know what you're feeling so that I could help you. I could have some empathy or compassion towards what you're going through. I may not understand completely what you're going through, but as a human, I want to help coddle you in a way so that I could help you get through whatever pain you're going through. And this is why it's important to have these conversations. So again, thank you for that.
No problem. And I think Future, I want to bring you in this perfect time for you to unmute because she's been the best living embodiment of the "Are you okay?" question. Because anybody that's connected with Future probably at some points gets a voice note from her when there's like a really pointed question. It's not just like, "Hey, how are you?" She's like, "What's the baby doing? What's a milestone the kid has right now? How's your actual mental health? Not how are you okay?" She has very direct, helpful questions, and I look forward to them. In Future, you're not bugging me. I appreciate them because much to what Reggie said, it's just like, "Are you okay?" I would always say, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm okay." Because it's one of those questions just like, "How are you today?" "I'm great. How are you?" There's no real meat to it. So Future, for you, I mean, you spend a lot of your time focusing on that for people. What has made you decide that was your way to kind of help spread goodwill into the world?
What? Gosh, probably many things, right? Many things on my life here on this planet. But I think my breaking point was when I was impacted by mental health to the point where workspaces caused me to go into a depression and anxiety. And that impacted many facets of my life and then had ripples throughout my family, my friendships, the colleagues that I worked with. And at that point, I said, okay, I have to, like others were saying on here, what is my emotional inheritance? What's my legacy? And I just want to give back to people. I labeled myself an ambassador for humanity because I think if the world spreads more love and more joy, it helps us heal. But we have to start being honest and sitting with ourselves, is what I often say. And when people are asking us, how are you? Then we seriously have to say, own it. I'm not good. Thank you for asking how I truly am, and not just brushing it off with the good, but saying, this is how I am feeling. And what I appreciate about you, Daryl, is the point that you did say, I'm not in this place in the summer where I could do this. Because what we have to do as people and our community is take back our no. And our no is powerful because that no to other people says yes to me. It says yes to my mental health. It says yes to my well-being. It says yes to my self-love. And that's what we have to do. And I think sometimes we forget about that. So I'm glad that you shared that with everybody, that I can say no, and this is what it was supposed to be. And I'm not going to push through. I'm not going to trudge through the mud, be bruised and battered, because I don't have to. I could own my no, and I'm going to teach other people to own their no too.
It was definitely hard, but I think it's one of those things, and this is a good space for this because LinkedIn is a professional platform, but there are Black people here that have trauma from, centuries of trauma. And Teryl, you mentioned working, a lot with our community, and I think about in the professional space, you already have it that you have a card against you, like, oh, you're Black, so you're going to have a little bit of a hurdle to you. And then as a male is perceived to be strong all the time. As a woman, we saw how the politics, they rely on Black women for everything. Like, make everybody vote and get out there. And there's always this extra burden in the professional space that if you're Black, you're supposed to be a superhero. And, this is where it's been challenging, where I think I've had, white friends that therapy is normal for them. So I'm going to see my therapist. Going to my therapist, like, it was just like saying it's Tuesday, versus in the Black family, it's like, oh my God. So Teryl, what do you think we got to make an impact with this. I'm big with this platform of not just being by element, but actually having impact and doing something with it. So what's something you think in the Black community each of us can do on a ground level that can help mental health in our Black men be not so stigmatized?
Great question again, man. I had for Black Mental Health Awareness Month a few months back. We had a couple of panel discussions ourselves within Center for Black Progress. And I did a lot of research during that time. I just want to shout out Dr. Ryan C. Warner. He's a leadership on diversity and wellness. And I'm just going to go ahead and defer to him. He has the 4 M's, the 4 M's of mental health, what can be helpful to mitigate stress and improve well-being. Black men seek to establish some type of meaningful connection, right? And that's hard during this COVID time because a lot of people, for their safety and for the safety of others around them, we've limited the type of connections and interactions we can have. So that's a hurdle that we need to figure out. Thankfully, we're living in one of the most technologically advanced times ever. I mean, this is the pinnacle of, like, every day it's the pinnacle in this society of the most technologically advanced time in history. So your Zoom, you still got Skype, even though Skype is getting left behind. You got FaceTime, you have Google Duo, all these things. FaceTime everybody for everything. If you need to call your neighbor, ask for a cup of sugar, FaceTime them, right? Like, figure out ways to forge meaningful connections to people. And that's going to go a long way. Mastery is the second one. Anytime a man, woman, child, anyone devotes themselves to the betterment of themselves in any type of craft, any type of art, any skill or tool, that focus on your strengths and positive attributes is going to do like so much for your mental state. The next one is mindfulness. And I'm going to do a little plug for one of my LinkedIn connections here. She has an app called Chocolate Mindfulness, aka My Retreat. It's a Black-owned mindfulness app. I told y'all I find and shop everything Black, so I'm always going to have you the Black plugs. So download that app. Practicing mindfulness is useful because it helps you to really be self-aware. Feel your breaths, feel your skin, think about what you're thinking about. So few people operate at this level of awareness. We're always running around on autopilot, and when you let the wheels of life drive you around, because your job, your career, your kids, they will drive you if you let them. So you need to remember that you're in the driver's seat and think about what's going on and be intentional. And then the final one is movement, wellness, man. I told you before that there's a lot of disparities in the Black community. Health in all facets of health, whether it's physical fitness, emotional, mental, it's a challenge for us. So make a dedication to yourself that you're going to get up and move, even if it's just, hey, I'm going to clean up, I don't know, the attic today. I'm going to walk out to, the store or something. Depending on where you are, find a way to move. And these are just some, and I misspoke earlier, that article that I was mentioning, it's actually from Dr. Sue Varna, but Dr. Ward was the one that reposted it. So that's some of the things I would recommend. And then I also want to finish by saying this, Daryl and everyone, what we need to realize too is that suicide is the third leading cause of death among Black men. So it's real out here. Like, it's real in the field, as we like to say. Black men are so much less likely than any other ethnicity, any other demographic group to receive mental care. We're less likely to receive guideline consistent care, less likely to be included in research unless it's for negative reasons. And then we're most likely to use emergency rooms and primary care other than going to see an actual specialist. So again, like, the chips are against us, but what else is new? We Black, right? No one here is, again, that's a blessing and a curse. No one here is a stranger to that psychosocial, emotional burden of Blackness. But the thing I want to say is we need to also realize, for the people in our lives and anyone that we encounter, our colleagues, it's not just easy to say, oh, you need to talk to someone. Oh, you need to go get help. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which all of y'all intelligent, y'all probably heard about, at the very top is self-actualization. So we need to stop and thank God that every one of us on this call, if not at that top level, being able to self-actualize, we're darn close, because we can sit here and not be worried about our food, clothing, shelter. We can sit here and not be worried about our physical safety, at least in the immediate sense. We can aspire to our higher selves, talking about how we become the best version. How do we leave an emotional inheritance, break generational traumas? All that stuff is necessary work, but so many people can't even afford to look past their immediate circumstances, man. And again, that's the reality of Blackness across this country. So my first and foremost recommendation to everybody on this panel and everybody listening is to love yourself as love your neighbors as you love yourself. And that you can say that's biblical, but in the Black community, the least we can do, if you're not, you don't have to be out here marching and protesting. You don't have to be out here making organizations and coalitions. But if you can at least like make a dedication to yourself to love Black people whenever you see them, however you encounter them, wherever they're at in their journey, and to give them grace. And to, like Future said, at least once a day, man, find somebody, whether you know them or not, and ask, stop them. If you can be physically with them, grab them. Are you okay? Are you really okay? And then spare a few minutes just to hear them out. Stuff like that is how you build community. Those are the intangibles that undergird a society of unity and cooperation. And that's something else that's sorely needed in our community right now.
Mm-hmm. Powerful. And then as you were speaking, yeah, we got the applause from everybody. Teryl always dropping the mic every time he says something. But Reggie, Mr. Walker, as when you're going through that transition, I mean, sometimes when Teryl mentioned people don't have the economic things around them. So if you're in that situation where you say, hey, I'm changing, like we're in the NFL saying I'm changing and focusing on me, how do people deal with those around them that aren't willing to do that? So if you're in a situation where your father isn't thinking about that, your brother, your friends are not about that, what is something you can give as a tip that you use for yourself to help people realize my mental health is more important than my relationship with you, if that's what it comes to?
Yes, that's a great question, because that actually happened. Not necessarily with my father, but with a lot of other people in my life. When I was making my transition out, and I understood that I needed to put my mental health first, because at that time I was 27. I had dealt with mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and I hadn't dealt with it properly at all. And I knew that I needed to deal with it, or I was never going to get over this hump. So what I had to do, the people that supported, I made sure I kept them in my circle. The people that didn't, I made sure that they were not in my circle. And I had to, at the end of the day, be comfortable with how many people are still going to be here, and not being afraid to lose anyone. Because when it comes to my life, I'm the one living it, and I know I have to put my health first so I can give to everyone else. And at that period of time, I wasn't giving to everyone else. As a matter of fact, I wasn't a great dad. I wasn't a great husband. I wasn't a great friend, and I knew this. So in order for me to change, when my college coaches would say, if you want things to change, you must change. And I knew I needed to change. So, in order to change, you have to be comfortable with letting some people go. And you don't need everyone to like you and be okay with that. And at the end of the day, when I really got comfortable with that, that's when I really started to heal.
Yeah, so be okay making your circle so small it's a period, as the great philosopher Champagne Poppy said one time. But either way, Future, now we mentioned one thing that's really powerful and make sure people know about is that in 15 to 24 years of age, suicide is the second cause of death for our Black children. So we've heard the phrase "deal with it" a few times. Dealing with it. Future, what is something we can do to help a teenager deal with it? Because I mean, adults, heck, we barely got it together dealing with it. But what does that mean for a 15 to 24-year-old to deal with mental health for them?
I just did a talk at a school district for this. So I think one thing that you can do is make it a purpose every night with your child, with your children, to sit down and have a conversation. Whether it's at dinner, whether it's before they're going to bed, whether it's when they come home from school, to do a check-in. And if your child is like many that at the high school level that maybe don't want to talk a lot because they have better things to do than to talk to their parents, then I would say just do a check-in question of, in one word, how was your day and how are you feeling? 1 to 3 words, just to say, okay. And then depending on if they say happy, excited, anxious, whatever the word is, then you could have more conversations, or would you like to talk to me about that? And leave it open for them to feel comfortable. Because the more you normalize this as a routine in your house, then the more comfortable they'll be with sharing the harms that maybe have happened to them at school, the hurts that they're experiencing, as well as the joys and the celebration that they're experiencing. And then that will become a normal skill and routine for them to carry on in their life and to pass to their children. As we were all talking about, Teryl was saying the emotional inheritance is building now. So I would say start those conversations now, and that's an easy tip to do.
And Pierre, you got a practice you do. You have younger than teenage kids, and you have a great practice you're doing with them to let them know to love themselves. What made you start doing that, and what's your goal with that?
It's to focus on their subconscious mind. I think one of the things that we don't talk about a lot is our subconscious mind, which is way more important than our conscious mind. And so what I do with my kids, folks, is I give them a bath, and I always say, why do I give them a bath? I always tell people, because my wife said, give them a bath. No, really what I'm doing is I get an opportunity to pour into their subconscious mind. So what I do is I take, like, for instance, Chloe, I take her out the bath, put her on the sink. You know, they got a double sink in their bathroom when they're looking in the mirror, and they look in the mirror butt naked. And I literally have them look at themselves up and down. And I say, you ready? And they say, yeah. And I say, 1, 2, 3, let's go. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. Because God made me perfect. And they be like, yeah. And Chloe's like, oh my God, come on, Daddy, let's do it again. And she put the little shark, I know y'all kids got the little shark hoodie, towel. Yeah. She's like, put the shark on. We put the shark on, we do it again. And we do it again. And then we call Glama, which is my mom. Glama. And she want to FaceTime so she can see it, so she can get that experience too. And she said, Glama, you do it. Now my mom is 75. What am I doing with my mom? See what I'm saying, y'all? We got to do this stuff because, hey, now my mom is getting into it and she's doing it. At the end of the day, if we can get into the subconscious mind of the child and program them, one of the things that I always say that we should do, and this is mental health, this is very important, this is my tip for everybody, is to guard the gates to our minds. Guard the gates to your subconscious mind. What am I saying? Your eye gate. What are you consistently watching every day?
Yep.
Are you watching the news? If you've seen any of my content, I'm always saying we need to be informed, but we don't need to be inundated. And I think that's very important to I'm like Tony. I love positivity, Tony. We boys, man. Y'all. This is a new family now. I didn't know y'all before, but I know Future and Dow. But I'm saying these things are really important, like to guard the gates to your mind. So your eye gate, what are you looking at consistently? Social media, man, we're getting programmed. I worked in media. I used to work in radio. The reason why we know the words to our favorite song is because of space-time repetition. That's it. Space-time repetition. The reason why we think the way we think and we create the biases we create, all human beings, whether you have a lot of melanin or less melanin, is because of programming. And so my strategy is like, I'm gonna program the heck out of my children because I know what society they're going to go into. So they're going to be programmed. I love myself, no matter who, because I came into this world the way I came in. And guess what? Nobody can change who they are. And we have a responsibility as parents. This is where I talking to the parents a little bit to make sure that don't let the school system, don't let the society train your children's mind to have confidence. I'll say this last thing. I have a principle in simple intelligence. Tip for the new book coming out. My response is my responsibility. That's the second principle of simple intelligence. My response is my responsibility. No matter what happens to you, no matter what is coming at you, the way you respond is your responsibility. And I think that's so important. If we could just embrace that, and just take that on and own it. And just own that. That's my strategy, y'all. And I just love it. I do it every day. I don't play, man. Because look,
my kids think I made that up. I repeat you saying that all the time. I always tell my kids, like, hey, my good friend Pierre is like, hey, my responsibility when they do something dumb or whatever. If I'm about to get mad, I repeat to myself, like, wait a minute, how I respond to this. And I didn't have an articulate way of saying it before I met you. I would just kind of say, you choose how you respond to life, but your way is much cleaner. So I like your way a lot better. But Tony, I want to bring you in for a question we actually had from Mr. Will Kesselman. He actually had Good question. There's a deeper question. What if someone doesn't have the self-awareness and or support system or support anyone?
It's simple. For me, you have to create it. You have to create it. There was once a time where it was just me, and it was the most loneliest, darkest place I had ever been in my life. It was the first time I like really had to look into the mirror and say, you know what? I'm miserable, right? And it's okay to say that I'm miserable. I'm going through some pain. I have some insurmountable obstacles to overcome. But you know what? I got a choice. I got a choice. I know that I'm in pain. How do I make it better? How do I get out of the situation? Like it's internal. You tell yourself, you trick yourself. I have this mantra. I've been into situations before where I wasn't supposed to make it out of. I tell myself it, and it doesn't matter if it makes sense to anybody else but you, but yourself. I tell myself I'm not supposed to be here. So when I'm going through some of the bad things that I've went through in life, I think about the worst situations that I've ever been through. And I said, if I made it through that, I can get through this. I'm not supposed to be here. Come up with a mantra, trick yourself, because, we hear mindset quite a bit. We hear mindset a lot. Everybody talks about it. It's a buzzword. I freaking overuse it in social media posts, right? But I never go like deep. Like, how do you feel about yourself? What do you want? You have to be, if your quest, your dream is to be happy, you have to go and find that happy. I have a mentor was in this documentary called Happy, right? And they were talking about all of these different people that were going through suffering, and they're just, me and my wife were watching it. I'm like, how can they're in a third world country. How can they be happy? They're alone. How can they be happy? They have nobody to affirm them. How can they be happy? But they went on a quest. So I would encourage the viewer, go on the quest to find your happiness. I know it's easier said than done, but I think about a story, something that I went through. I just started sharing this, but man, I remember sitting at my desk and looking around in my office and just like feeling alone. Feeling alone, making over $175,000 a year. You would think that's where that you're happy. Oh my God, you're freaking killing it. Okay, you're killing it. Fancy car, big house, the whole thing. But I remember being so freaking miserable. I went out to my car, called my good friend, and I said, "Man, is it bad? Is it bad?" And I had this conversation with two different people, my friend and my wife, and I think a cousin. Is it bad that I wish I can get fired right now? Right. That was my job. Wasn't bringing me joy. I said, I wish I could get fired, but you know what? So I went there, but then I brought myself back and I said, you know what? I'm not going to get fired because I give everything to this job. I give everything to this company. They love me. They're not going to get rid of me. I'm losing myself here. So what do I got to do? I became obsessed with that happiness, obsessed with, okay, I don't want to wake up on Sunday and be like, dang, I got to go to work. I don't want to do that no more. I don't want to wake up on Sunday dreading Monday. So I became obsessed with it. So I want to encourage you, whatever you're going through. For me, it's riding bikes. For me, it's talking and wrapping my arms around people. Like find that joy, you find that purpose, you find that spot by doing the things that you love, and you become obsessed with that, obsessed with serving you so that you can serve other people. And I know I was long-winded, but that spoke to my soul. And there's a lot of people too that they need to hear it. Like if you're around people and you're like, man, that dude is really cool. Like, say it. We don't do that enough. I think I've sent Reggie a couple of messages. Dude, I freaking love what you're doing. You're freaking killing it. Because I'm like legit over here, man, crushing on some of the stuff that he's doing. I look at Daryl and I'm just like, man, he's killing it. I've said a couple of times, man, you're killing it with that bow tie. I love it, right? And we have to do that. We have to affirm each other. Birthdays, right? Birthdays, what we do in our household with my kids is, we do give them the presents. We give them all this, but a staple, the last 5 years, we affirm these kids. We tell them, hey, I love you. You're beautiful. You help me when I get through this. And we go around the table, and that's what we do. We need to normalize affirming
Yeah.
one another because we're beautiful. We're uniquely made. There's nobody like us, period.
Yep. This brings a great comment. I want Future to chime in, because Future had a great post about, it was a shirt with a black male saying, like, we're not supposed to be live, jokes on you, we're still here, kind of situation. Comment from Diana Parker. She said, I don't know a group of human beings need therapy more than the black community. Black and trauma go hand in hand. Yes, therapy is a normal part of life of the white community. They have never gone through what the black community has. Therapy should be included in the black community self-care toolbox and be comfortable with it. So I couldn't have said that better, but Future, with your post, I love the way you put it together with the shirt. I want to have you start the closing, because I want to be respectful of people's time, but closing this out, for if there's a black man watching this, someone that has a black man in their life, they want to work with black people, what's your message to these people to help black men so that all of us do better?
I think I would say stay healthy, be mindful, stay positive, because I will keep saying this. We are in the middle of a mental marathon. And if your mind isn't right, everything else falls. I would also say to the person that had asked the question, if I don't know where to begin with self-awareness, then what do I do? I would say we have the ability to connect because you're here, so you have internet. And I would say surround yourself on your social media with the people who are positive, who are affirming, who are on their journey to self-awareness or already have self-awareness and are trying to help others. So I would say follow every single one of us here. I'm personally telling you, you could send me a direct message and I will be whatever support that I could possibly be for you. And I just want to send everybody love and say, I see you. You are valued. And if anybody out there is looking to talk, I will return any voice message or direct message that comes to me. You might just have to give me time, but I do get back.
This is true. Future is not just saying this because she wants to be nice to the professionally black family. She is 100% about that life. But Mr. Waterman, what's your message for the people watching this that they say, hey, I want to help the black man in the community, or if I'm a black man?
Just before I say that, Future will respond to you, and she will probably yell at you because that's what she does. No, I'm just joking. No, she's a peach. No, so the final word I want to say for everybody is, you know what? Just let's change the narrative. I think that's the biggest challenge for us right now, but accept that challenge. And what I mean by that is embrace who you are, understand what your gifts are, figure out how to utilize those gifts to make impact, not just for yourself, but for others. And you know what? As a black community, don't be afraid. Don't be so scarce with your time. Like Future said, it's like she dedicates her time to helping others and responding to DMs and so forth. I think we all need to give access, and that accessibility means access to resources, access to networks, access to knowledge, and just access to self. And sometimes obviously you have to protect your boundaries and all the mental health and so forth in your mental space, but let's be mindful of that and let's create that harmony that which we are put on this planet for.
Awesome. All right, Tony, parting words, little nugget for a t-shirt maybe. What's your parting words people want to help black men with their mental health?
I would just say reach out. I would just say reach out. There's unity and community. You're not alone. You need to understand that. Just like, I don't know if you guys ever experienced this, but when you're someplace that's predominantly another color, you look around, and if you see a brother, you go like this. You see him, and you're like, hey, what's up? It happens all the time, right? People ask me, like, why do y'all do that? But that's, I see you, right? So what we need to do is we need to let our brothers know, I see you. Even if you're not black and you see somebody in those corporate environments and you see that they're struggling a little bit, I see you. I see you, because we all love to be seen, and it's nice and beautiful to be seen and uplifted by the people. There's unity and community.
I knew Tony was going to have a t-shirt. I think see right there. There's a new t-shirt. There's unity and community. Thank you, Tony. I was bringing the t-shirt worthy statements.
I'm about to write that down. That's good.
Write it down. T-shirt for real. I'm good for picking out t-shirt moments on these shows. All right, Mr. Walker, what's your tip you want to have for people to help with mental health for black men in our community?
I would say first, just understand that It's a process, and at first, it's going to be pretty brutal. Understanding a lot of the facts about yourself and the reasons why you do what you do, the reason why you are the way that you are, understanding these truths and uncovering them, it can be very brutal. But make the commitment to go through it. And just like, what was said earlier, it really is a decision that you make all the time. I want this happiness, I want this for my life, I want this for myself, I want to be the person I want to be towards others. So I make that decision each and every day to be that person, to go and dive deeper into myself, to understand these truths, and never be afraid of the truth about you or anything that you're doing. Don't be afraid of it, because you can always change things. We have time. As long as you're breathing, you can always change things. So, and the last thing I would say is make the commitment to sit with yourself sometime each day, just a little bit. Understand, just sit with yourself. Turn the cameras off, turn the phones off, turn the TV off, sit with yourself, check in with yourself, see what's going on. You can't give to others if you haven't given to yourself first. So just remember that. And then I'll leave you with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Great comments. All right, Pierre, we're not going to say let's go now because we're ending, but what's a good tip for you for people?
Well, I think the first tip is what I said earlier, is guard the gates to your mind. Men, women, human beings, all human beings should do that. We don't need to be consistently taking in negativity. We got to be careful. We need to be informed, but we don't need to be inundated. So that's the first thing. And then your failures are not who you are. Remember, I told y'all that I played college football 5 years, won one college football game. I didn't allow that to make me who I am. I knew that I was on a team, and hey, look, I played my position, but the rest of the team, we as a team, we lost. So take your time for yourself, like Tony said, especially, I know how it is as an athlete, when you're dealing with, check who's your personal team, the people that you have around you, who's your community, who's on your team, and then also just think about, don't be too hard on yourself. I think we are very hard on ourselves. And that's one of the things that I try to say a lot, tell people, don't be too hard on yourself. One of the things that I say in Simple Intelligence is failure is the prerequisite for success. You ask any successful person in the world, including someone that you think is unsuccessful, you ask them, have they ever failed? They're going to say yes. Failure is the prerequisite for success. So if you embrace these thought processes, the ideas that all of these kings and this queen has bestowed upon us, I think we're going to be fine. And then have more conversations like this, man. Look, smile every day. Be thankful. Like Tony say, let's go. Tony,
All right, Terrell, I want you to close things out, Terrell. So definitely your work is all about the Black community. So we know we had the 4 M's earlier. What's an actionable tip for the Black men or people that work with Black men?
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Whew. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. So for people that work with Black men, to make sure I understand what you're saying correctly, how can they basically support and be there for the Black men in their spaces in their lives, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the first thing I would say to people is to get comfortable with the potential of being uncomfortable. It's one of the hardest things to channel in this world today is true empathy. I mean, it's almost next to godliness and next to forgiveness. If you can truly empathize with somebody whose experience you differ from, whose reality you may even reject because it may threaten your own very reality. You have that cognitive dissonance. If you can have the courage and the moral fiber to truly dare to care, oh my God, like how powerful is that? And that transcends any race, any culture. But if you can say, I am in this space, I see this Black man here, and if you're watching this, and if there's anyone who's not been completely in a coma for the last year and a half and seeing what's going on in this country, you know that there are some issues with how Black people are treated in this country. Jane Elliott is a very popular person who's a cavalier and a warrior in the crusade for social justice. She did an experiment among many experiments where she had a bunch of white students in the class. And, you know, a lot of people would say, oh, everything's good. We're in a post-racial society. But she did a simple experiment and said, raise your hand if you want to be treated the way black people are treated. Guess how many people raised their hands?
Nobody.
Right?
0.
So that says and I guarantee you, and there's tons of experience, there's tons of research out there that will tell you the truth, that this is the reality we face. But I say all that to say that if you are a non-black person, here it is right here. Okay, I had to cast around a little bit because there's so many things I can say. If you are not a black person and you interact with black people and you, for some blessed reason, have got it in your heart to say, I want to connect, I want to support a black man, allow yourself to truly get to know that black man, right? Commit whatever the time is. It can be a minute or two. It can be taking them out on a lunch. It can be whatever. Commit yourself to listening and learning what their experience is. What is your reality? It's obviously different from mine. You know, I'm someone who's Indian American. I'm someone who's a white American. I'm Latino. Understand that your experience does not necessarily have to be their experience, and that's okay. And understand the beauty in that, and just commit yourself to listening. And to the people that you are black man listening to this, and to talk real briefly to that guy or girl or that person that had that question, what do you do when you don't have the resources and you don't even have the self-awareness? That's the biggest question. How do you change when you don't know how to change, right? How do you do these things that it seems impossible to do? And what I always tell people, there's a couple of quotes. One of my go-tos is, until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, you will never change, right? You can lay there. There can be a dog on the porch laying there on a nail poking in his side, moaning and yowling all day. But until the dog just says, you know what, I'm going to roll over, he's going to stay there and be in pain. So there's so many things that hold us back as a people. There's so much lack of resources. But on that very basic tenet, you have to feel that something's not right. I need to change. And to do that, you need to be able to tell yourself the truth. Cultivate the power to tell yourself the truth if you don't tell anyone else, but be truthful to yourself, be aware. Oh my God, emotional intelligence on 10. And I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Well, this is therapy for me. I appreciate y'all doing this. It's helped me. We got the claps, the finger snaps, whatever way you're going to do it. I say, and everything to make everything positive. So I appreciate you all joining me, all the audience members. Thank you, especially for our less melanated counterparts. The thing I like about Professionally Black is we have all different, race in here. So thank you in the comments. Thank you for the people on the replay. And please share this with somebody that needs help with this. You might see all of us and say, crushing it when you see the follower count and the contents and all that. But as you heard from everybody here, we have issues. We deal with them in different ways, but we all have issues. So don't let the fact of the social media facade throw you. People like Tony said, they're crushing it. I'm not all the time. I got issues. Y'all saw one earlier in the show. So we all have our things going on. So I want you to understand this is what I love LinkedIn for, that we're honest here. This is not an Instagram flex. This is not a clubhouse. I'm a billionaire and I'm broke. This is one of those these are real professionals that have a real life and they have issues. So please, if you know someone that you think is perfect and needs some help, or they're not perfect and need some help, share this with them. And I know Future will answer any message, but I think anybody here will answer any message saying, hey, I need to talk to somebody. Some of my best relationships I've made in the last 5 years have come off of LinkedIn. So please, folks, be safe. There's a pandemic still going on. So please, whether you're vaccinated or not, please wear a mask. We got to end this thing so we can actually hug people like Tony and Terrell have said. But thank you, folks. We'll catch you next time, and please be safe.